My name's Alex. I'm 39. I've been driving trucks most of my adult life. I don't talk much about it, and I sure as hell don't tell the story often. But it's been sitting with me for years now, gnawing at the edges of my mind. And if I don't get it out soon, I think I'll go crazy. It started with a haul out of Lincoln, just a regular job. HVAC units headed to Salt Lake. Nothing out of the ordinary. I was running solo in my own rig. It's not new, not by a long shot, but it runs, and that's what matters. The job was booked tight. If I wanted to stay on schedule, I had to drive overnight. No big deal. I've pulled tougher shifts. The first several hours were smooth. No traffic. Barely even saw another set of headlights after I hit the Wyoming stretch of I-80. I'd driven that route more times than I could count. I knew the exits, which ones had decent fuel stops, which ones had coffee that didn't make you hate your life. Around 1 a.m., I passed mile marker 313. I only noticed it because I'd passed it the week before, same route. I remember thinking it sounded like a hotel room number. Or maybe an apartment. It stuck with me for no real reason. Just one of those random things your brain decides to file away. But this time, as I passed it, I felt this weird tightening in my chest. Not a heart thing, just a deep, creeping sense that something was off. You know how you can walk into a room and just know something's wrong even if nothing looks out of place? That kind of feeling. At first, I thought maybe I just needed food. I hadn't eaten anything since lunch except gas station peanuts and energy drinks. Then the CB crackled. It wasn't tuned to any channel I use, and there weren't any other rigs nearby to talk to. But it hissed like someone was trying to speak. I leaned over, thinking it was just static. But under the static, faint and barely audible, there was a voice. A woman's voice. Muffled. Wet-sounding. Do you see her? That's all I caught. I grabbed the mic, repeat that. Nothing. I switched channels. Tried to hail someone. Dead air. Total silence. No traffic reports. No trucker banter. Just the hum of tires on pavement and the low groan of my engine. Then I saw her. Up ahead, walking along the shoulder. A woman. She was wearing a long white dress. Barefoot. Her hair hung down over her face. She was maybe 30 feet off the edge of the lane. Just walking. Slow. Steady. She wasn't hitchhiking. She wasn't flailing or crying out for help. Just moving. And the thing that struck me most, she didn't look cold. No shoes. No coat. My headlights swept right over her and she didn't even flinch. It was like she didn't even know I was there. I hit the air horn. Full blast. Nothing. She didn't turn. Didn't flinch. Just kept walking, slow and steady, like I wasn't barreling toward her in a 40,000-pound rig. I eased the truck left, just enough to give her space without crossing the line. My eyes never left her. I passed her. And she kept walking. Unchanged. Like I didn't exist. I flicked my eyes to the side mirror. Gone. No sign of her. Not a flash of white fabric. No shadow stretching behind her. Nothing. I've seen some wild things out on the road. People high out of their minds, stumbling between lanes. Animals darting across the highway like they're on a death mission. Once I saw a guy set up a lawn chair in the median, just sat there waving at traffic like it was a parade. But this chilled me in a way I didn't understand. Still, I didn't stop. I kept the wheels turning, trying to rationalize it. Maybe she was a hallucination. Maybe I was overtired. Maybe I dozed off for a second and dreamed it all. I kept reaching for explanations. None of them stuck. About an hour later, I pulled off at a rest stop. One of those tiny pull-offs you almost miss. No services. No vending machines. Just a broken picnic table and a single floodlight buzzing above a sad little patch of gravel. I stepped out to stretch my legs and light a smoke. That's when I saw them. Footprints. Bare. Small. Damp. Right there on the metal side step of the passenger door. Like someone had stood there while I was driving. I froze. Just stood there, staring at them, cigarette smoldering between my fingers. I don't know how long I stood like that. When I moved, I did it fast. Too fast. I yanked open the passenger door, slammed it against the side of the trailer. Climbed up into the cab, heart pounding. Checked the passenger seat. The sleeper. Under the bunk. Nothing. No one. But the smell hit me hard. It was stale. Wet. Earthy. Like a basement that had flooded years ago and never dried out. Like mildew and cold stone and something rotten left too long. It didn't belong in my rig. I slammed the doors, locked everything, and got back on the road. That's when something happened. Something I still can't explain. Even after all these years, I remember it like it happened last night. About 20 minutes later, I passed mile marker 313 again. I hadn't turned around. I was still heading westbound. The GPS said I was right on track. Everything looked normal, but there it was. The same number, same spot, and that same gut-wrenching feeling like my stomach was shrinking in on itself, folding into a knot. And then, about 100 yards ahead, there she was. The woman. Same white dress. Same bare feet. Same slow, deliberate walk. But this time, she looked up and smiled. It wasn't a normal smile. It wasn't human. Her mouth stretched too far, as if she were trying to force an expression onto a face not built for it. And her teeth. God, there were too many. Long, sharp, layered in rows. I didn't stop. Didn't blink. I drove straight through her. I braced for the impact, jaw clenched, muscles locked. But there was none. Just a blast of cold air, violent and sudden. Like I'd opened a freezer door in a pitch-black room. My windshield fogged up instantly from the inside. The cabin filled with icy mist. My breath came out in quick, visible puffs. My hand slipped slightly on the wheel, damp from the sudden condensation. And then, it was gone. The fog cleared. The cold vanished, like the whole truck had exhaled. I didn't stop again until the sky began to shift from black to gray, the first light of morning barely warming the horizon. I pulled into a truck stop, a real one with lights and people and noise. I parked the rig and just sat there. Engine off, doors locked, my hands still on the wheel like I was afraid to let go. I made the delivery that day, unloaded like it was any other job. Didn't say a word to the customer, not a thing to the dispatcher, just nodded, signed the form, drove off. A week later, back at the lot in Nebraska, I was cleaning out the cab. I lifted the seat on the passenger side, and wedged near the hinge was something that made my blood turn to ice. A scrap of cloth, white, still damp to the touch, streaked in something dark. Rust, maybe blood, I don't know. But on it, written, smeared, or burned in, I don't even know how, was a number. 313. That was it for me. I didn't make some big announcement. No dramatic walkout or rant on the radio. I just told dispatch I wasn't doing overnights anymore. Took local work instead. Short routes. Daytime hauls only. I've never been back on that stretch of I-80 since. And I won't. People ask why I changed up my routes, why I gave up long haul after all those years. I tell them it's the schedule, the stress, my back acting up. They nod. It makes sense. I'm 36. Been doing long haul for most of my adult life, close to 15 years behind the wheel. Most nights blur together. Asphalt. White lines. Bad coffee. Static on the radio. You stop thinking about the weird little things you see out there. Just file them away as quirks of the road. But there's one night I can't file away. No matter how hard I try. This was back in 2020. I was hauling steel from Salt Lake City down to Phoenix. Pretty standard run. Dispatcher told me to avoid the Flagstaff Pass. Early snowstorm had shut it down the night before. So I took the long route. Eastern Arizona along Highway 101. If you've ever driven that stretch, you know what it's like. Empty. No lights. No gas stations for miles. Just scattered red rock formations and a two-lane highway that stretches like a ribbon into nothing. It was late, probably just past midnight, when the exhaustion hit. Not the usual tired you shake off with a monster or by rolling the window down. This was different. My eyelids felt like sandbags. My arms heavy as concrete. I kept missing mile markers. Drifting across the line. Jerking back to center. So I pulled off. There was a little dirt patch off the shoulder, not a real turnout, just enough space to get the cab off the road without risking a sideswipe. I set the brake. Killed the engine. Leaned the seat back and wrapped my flannel shirt around my eyes to block the glow from the dash. I don't even think I was asleep yet when I heard it. The knocking. It came from underneath the cab. Not loud, but sharp. Tap. Pause. Tap. Like fingernails or bone on metal. It wasn't rhythmic like a cooling engine. It sounded deliberate. I froze. Kept perfectly still. Just listened. My mind kicked in, tried to rationalize it. Probably a raccoon, I thought. Maybe a loose bracket settling. But the timing was wrong. Too spaced out. Too purposeful. Like it was waiting between taps. Like it wanted me to know it was there. Slowly, I pulled the flannel off my eyes. Checked the mirrors. Nothing but black. Desert at night drinks up light like a sponge. Even with a full moon, you don't see much past the shoulder. I reached out the window with my flashlight, angled it downward. Tried to catch a glimpse under the truck. Nothing. Just dust and shadows. And then the knocking stopped. I sat back, heart thudding a little faster than I wanted to admit. I reached for the keys. The moment I turned the ignition, the cab exploded with this horrific screeching sound from the radio. It wasn't static. It wasn't even feedback. It sounded like metal being torn in half, long, high-pitched, like nails on glass, like screaming from a throat made of steel. I scrambled to shut it off, grabbed the knob, twisted too hard. Snapped it clean off in my hand. Silence dropped like a hammer. And in that silence, I saw her. She was standing behind the trailer. Just there, about 20 feet back, right in the middle of the dirt road I'd pulled off on. She looked like a woman, maybe mid-30s. Long, tangled black hair. Skin tone that said she might be Navajo, but something was off. Her limbs hung too loosely, like her joints didn't work right. Disconnected somehow. Her mouth was open, gaping, like she was screaming, but no sound came out. Her arms were limp at her sides, except for the right hand. That one kept twitching. Over and over, like it was stuck in a loop. I didn't move. I don't even think I breathed. My whole body was screaming at me to stay still. Don't react. Don't blink. Don't look too long. Every instinct I had said, she knows you see her. She's waiting for something. And then I blinked. She was gone. I bolted out of the cab, flashlight in hand. Circled the trailer. Called out, "Hey, you okay?" No answer. No movement. Just the wind humming low and the tick of the engine cooling. Then, as I stepped back toward the cab, I heard something hit the ground near my foot. A faint clink. I looked down. It was a tooth. A molar. Human. Yellowed. Old. Still had the root. I froze. Light trembling in my hands, scanning the dirt for movement. Then I saw it. Just a flicker, something ducking under the trailer. Too fast to catch clearly. I crouched. Aimed the flashlight beneath the rig. Nothing moved. But the dust, it was covered in handprints. Dozens of them. Maybe more. Small, like children's hands. Some smeared, like something had been dragging itself through the dirt. Others were pressed flat against the tires, the gas tank, the undercarriage. And a few, high up, like someone had climbed. I climbed back into the cab and locked the doors. Pulled the crowbar from behind the seat. And just sat there. No lights. No radio. Just me and cold metal in my hands. Eyes flicking between the mirrors. Waiting. Around 2 a.m., the whispering started. It wasn't inside the cab. It felt like it was outside, circling the truck. I don't speak Navajo, but I grew up in Gallup. I've heard enough to recognize the rhythm. It wasn't speech. It was chanting. Low. Repetitive. Endless. It went on for hours. And I sat there the whole time. Not blinking. Not moving. Not speaking. Just listening. By the time the sky lightened and the whispering stopped, I felt like I'd aged 10 years. My hands were stiff from gripping the crowbar. My legs were numb. I climbed out at dawn and checked everything. The handprints? Gone. Every single one. Not even smudges in the dust. The ground looked untouched. The tooth gone, too. I didn't waste time. Started the engine and drove. Didn't stop to eat, piss, stretch, nothing. I made it to Phoenix by early afternoon. And I don't think I unclenched my jaw once the entire way. That night, I called Martin, an old coworker. He used to run freight through that same area years ago. I told him what happened. And when I got to the part about the woman and the tooth, he went quiet. Then he said, "You saw her." "What do you mean, her?" "She walks out there," he said. "Along those old roads. Sometimes she shows up when you stop alone. Looks like a woman. But she isn't." He paused. "Once she sees you, she doesn't forget. I haven't taken that route again. I don't stop on tribal land anymore. Not even for 5 minutes. And I barely drive nights now unless I'm in a convoy or within sight of a truck stop. I've been driving trucks longer than some dispatchers have been alive, 23 years and change. I don't scare easy. I've slept through tornado warnings, hauled loads through ice storms, even had a guy try to jack me at a rest area once. I've seen a lot of weird stuff out there. But nothing like what I saw off Highway 56. This happened about a year ago. I was on a solo run, hauling feed corn out of Wichita Falls, heading west toward Gallup. A route I've done 100 times. Smooth haul, mostly backroad stretches. Not a lot of towns in between, which is fine by me. I like the solitude. Gives me room to think. That night, I remember everything being normal. Too normal, maybe. No weird feelings. No red flags. I just passed through a small stop called Medford and was planning to pull over in about an hour. I wasn't behind schedule or pushing too hard. Just another leg of the trip. I'd been on the road about 5 hours when I saw a sign for a rest area. Faded green. Looked like someone had taken a shotgun to it, letters half missing, but I made out the words rest stop and an arrow pointing off the highway. Here's the thing. I'd never seen that sign before. And I know that road. Not just from memory, I've logged it on GPS routes, old dispatch logs, you name it. But I was tired. Not nodding off at the wheel, tired, just heavy-eyed and sore. Ready to park the rig and call it a night. So I turned off. The rest area was barely more than a slab of cracked pavement, lined with dead mesquite and busted fencing. No lights. No other vehicles. No vending machines or trash cans. Just this big, empty patch of dirt and concrete. I hesitated. Something felt wrong about it. I couldn't put my finger on why. Just this weird feeling in my chest, like a sudden pressure drop. Like when you walk into a room and just know someone was talking about you a second ago. I almost kept going. Should have. But I didn't. I told myself I was overthinking it. That it was just an old stop I'd never noticed before. Maybe decommissioned. Maybe temporary. Whatever. I'd sleep, get back on the road, and be in Gallup by mid-morning. So I parked, killed the engine, climbed into the sleeper. I cracked the window just a little for air out of habit and locked both doors. Then I lay back, and I was out within minutes. That sleep didn't last long. I woke up maybe an hour later. Not to a sound, not to movement, just this sharp, immediate awareness that something was off. My eyes opened, and it hit me. There wasn't a single sound. No wind, no insects, no engine ticking, nothing. It wasn't the peaceful kind of quiet. It was wrong, artificial, like the whole world had been put on mute. Then the smell hit, thick, wet, rotten, like meat left too long in a hot car. It made me gag. I sat up fast, my head bumping the ceiling. My heart was already racing before I even reached for the flashlight. I flicked it on and leaned forward toward the windshield. The beam cut through the cab and out across the lot. That's when I saw it. Someone was standing on the road, right in the middle of the blacktop, not far from my truck. Just standing there. No movement. No lights. No reason to be there. At first, I thought maybe they'd broken down. Maybe their car had gone off the road. I clicked the key in the ignition like nothing. My stomach dropped. I tried again. Still dead. My rig never fails me. I'm obsessive about pre-checks. Battery was brand new. Installed 6 days earlier. I tried a third time, slower. Still nothing. I turned the flashlight back toward the road. The figure was still there. Same spot. Same posture. Just waiting. I stared, trying to make out more details. It was tall. Really tall. The arms hung too low, down past where knees should be. The way it stood didn't look natural. It wasn't hunched, but its neck was tilted, bent sideways like it had been popped out of place. Its head twitched slightly, like it was adjusting to the light. But it didn't step forward. It didn't retreat. It just swayed slowly, side to side. I backed away from the windshield and shut off the flashlight. For the next 10, maybe 15 minutes, I sat there in the dark. Listening. Breathing shallow. Waiting for it to move. Then I looked again. And it was gone. I flicked the flashlight back on and swept the beam across the lot. Nothing. I almost let myself breathe. Then came the tap. Down by the passenger side window. I didn't turn right away. Just froze. That kind of fear where your brain won't even let your muscles move. Eventually, I looked. There was a face. Upside down, pressed against the glass. It had climbed onto the roof. Its mouth was wide open. So wide it looked like its jaw had unhinged. No teeth inside. Just a black, wet hole. Its skin was stretched too tight over its skull. Slick with something thick. Oil, maybe? Or blood? I couldn't tell. Its eyes were the worst part. White. Too white. Like they were carved from chalk. And they bulged. No lids. No movement. Just these pale orbs staring straight through the glass. I couldn't scream. I couldn't even breathe. My whole body locked up. Heart hammering against my ribs like it wanted out. I backed slowly toward the sleeper, keeping my eyes on it. Then, without warning, it dropped out of sight. No sound. No thump on the hood. Just gone. I stayed up the rest of the night. Flashlight aimed at the windshield. Wrench in my lap. Sweating through my clothes. At some point, I passed out. When I woke up, it was light out. Everything looked normal. Too normal. Desert stretch. Empty highway. Birds in the distance. Like nothing had happened. I started the truck first try. The engine purred like a cat. I didn't eat. Didn't check the tires. I just drove. Didn't stop until I hit Gallup. That night, I parked at a big, crowded truck stop. Lots of lights. People moving around. I felt safe until I climbed into the sleeper, pulled the curtain, and saw the handprints. 2 of them. Long, wet, smeared across the outside of the passenger side window. Like something had been trying to get in. I cleaned them off. Didn't tell anyone. A couple weeks later, I was filling up in El Paso. Another driver was chatting with me while the pumps clicked. I casually mentioned Highway 56. Told him I'd taken a weird, old rest stop west of Medford. His face went pale. He looked at me and said, "You pulled off there." I nodded. He didn't ask what happened. Just said, "You saw it." Then he walked away. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't finish his coffee. Now, I don't take that road anymore. I reroute through Amarillo. Adds about 2 hours depending on traffic. Don't care. I don't stop at rest areas I don't recognize. I don't crack my window. I don't ignore my instincts. And I don't sleep as easy as I used to. Because whatever the thing was, it knew me. It climbed up there on purpose. It wanted in. But it didn't get me. My name's Ray. I've been in the trucking game for 21 years. That's a lot of miles, a lot of late-night coffee, and more gas station sandwiches than I care to count. Over time, you stop noticing most of the weird stuff out there. The highway plays tricks on your eyes. Your brain zones out for stretches. And sometimes, yeah, you see things. But this wasn't that. This wasn't a trick or a blur in my mirror. This was the only time in my career something rattled me so bad I changed how I worked. I stopped doing night runs entirely after this. Started like any other haul. I had a trailer full of electrical transformers coming out of Idaho Falls. Destination: Cheyenne. Simple enough. I'd run that route so many times I didn't even need to check GPS anymore. Through Pinedale, past Rollins, straight on to Cheyenne. Easy money. I remember I stopped at this beat-up gas station just before the Wyoming border. It had one of those old displays that click over the numbers like it's still 1989. I swiped my card. Nothing. Tried again. The pump reset. Tried a third time. Reset again. Weird, but not unheard of. I went inside to pay, and the cashier, a wiry kid with a faded neck tattoo, saw my face and said, totally straight-faced, "Yeah, it does that when the ghost mess with it." I smirked, said something like, "Good one," and handed him cash. He just shrugged like he wasn't joking. I didn't push it, got back in the cab and rolled out. That stretch of road heading southeast into Wyoming is quiet at night. I mean quiet, not eerie, just normal for that area. But as I crossed the state line, something started to feel off. I can't explain it in a way that sounds logical, and that bugs me. It wasn't the road. It wasn't the truck. I just felt watched, like something was tagging along, just out of sight. I passed a few empty rest stops. No lights on. Didn't see another rig for miles. Just me and the highway. Then I saw it. 2 headlights just off the road, set back between a line of skinny pines. The lights were too high and too far apart to be a car. Another truck maybe pulled off for the night. That's what I told myself. But they were pointed the wrong way. Not toward the road, not angled for re-entry. No, these lights were aimed directly across the road. The lights were pointed straight at me like they were watching. I slowed down and leaned forward. That creeping sense in my gut was back. As I passed the spot, the lights vanished. Not dimmed, not flickered, just gone. No cab, no tail lights, no sound, nothing behind the trees. I checked my mirrors. Clean. No sign of a vehicle. No glint of metal. No movement at all. Just empty snow and still trees. I told myself it was some kind of roadside equipment. Maybe a weird angle. Maybe headlights from a truck coming off an access road and I just missed the turn. 10 minutes later, there they were again. Same lights. Same height. Same distance from the road. Same angle. And I swear to you, they were identical. Like someone had copied and pasted them 10 miles down the highway. Now I was spooked. I slowed nearly to a stop and cracked the window to listen. Cold air hit me, but I didn't care. There was nothing. No movement. No wind. No traffic. I grabbed the flashlight and aimed it into the trees. My hands were a little unsteady, and I hated that. I've driven through blizzards. I've had close calls with moose. Jackknifed once back in 2011. Never shaken me. But this was something else. Then the lights blinked out just like before. Gone. I sat there for a second, Flashlight still pointed, heart thumping in my ears. I told myself I was tired. That was the best I could come up with. I kept going. A few miles later, I saw a turnout. A gravel patch that looked like maybe it used to be a way station or some kind of snowplow staging area. No lights, no signs, just a wide flat spot to park. I pulled in, backed the trailer against a snowbank, and shut everything off. Silence. Not peaceful silence. Loaded silence. I climbed into the sleeper cab, left my boots on, just lay there. Flashlight within arm's reach. Not sleeping. Just thinking. What if it wasn't headlights? What if it wasn't a truck? Around midnight, I heard footsteps. Clear as day. Crunching in the snow. One step buzz. Another, I held my breath. There's a certain sound a person makes walking on snow when it's cold enough. Not the soft kind. The brittle kind. Crunchy. Sharp. This was that. Then silence. Then more steps. Closer now? I didn't move. The footsteps circled the truck. No rush. No urgency. Just slow pacing. Deliberate. Like someone checking it out. Then a dragging noise, like metal scraping along metal. It started at the rear of the trailer and dragged along toward the cab. I reached up and clicked the flashlight on but didn't move yet. Waited. The scrape stopped. I threw myself forward into the driver's seat and flipped the high beams on. The lot was empty. Totally still. But I saw them. Footprints. No shoes, no tread, just long, deep impressions. They circled the truck. One clean path all the way around. But they didn't leave. They stopped right under my door. I froze. Not because I didn't know what to do, but because I didn't trust that opening the door wouldn't bring whatever it was inside. I didn't check the trailer. I didn't walk around the lot. I started the truck, locked the doors, and took off hard. I didn't even look in the rearview mirror until I was 20 miles down the road. I drove straight into Cheyenne without stopping. Didn't eat. Didn't pee. Didn't even blink. The sun came up around Rollins. But it didn't feel like relief. Just light, that's all. At the first way station outside town, I pulled in. Hands still shaking. I told the officer on duty I thought someone had tried to break into my truck. He asked where. I said, mile marker 232. He frowned. That stretch doesn't have a 232. It jumps from 231 to 233. Been that way since the last reroute. I told him about the footprints, the lights, the sound of dragging metal. He didn't say anything for a second. Then he looked at my logbook and handed it back. You should drive during the day, he said, not smiling, not joking. Later, I pulled up the GPS log. It was all there except for a 5-minute window that was just gone. No ping. No data. Like the truck stopped existing for a bit. I've never gone back through that stretch at night. I've had offers. Good rates. I don't take them. I don't even drive dusk to dawn anymore. I'm a mechanic by trade, but back in 2009, I was driving trucks full-time. It wasn't my dream job, but it paid better than fixing busted tailpipes and worn-out transmissions. I used to take long hauls across the southern states, Texas to Arkansas, mostly. I knew those roads by heart. Some nights, it felt like the road knew me back. That October, I picked up a solo run from Amarillo to Little Rock. I remember it clearly because my birthday was coming up that weekend and I'd promised my sister I'd be home. Nothing fancy, just dinner and her terrible, lopsided carrot cake. But I was looking forward to it. Normally, I didn't do overnights alone. My co-driver Nate had quit the week before. Said he needed a break. His exact words were, I can't do nights anymore. He didn't explain why, but I could tell something had shaken him. During our last run together, he kept glancing in the side mirrors like he was waiting to see someone riding our bumper. I asked him about it once. He just said, you'll see, and laughed in that tight, not really funny way. I didn't press. Everyone has their ghosts. That night started out normal enough. I left Amarillo in the late afternoon. Clear skies, light traffic. I stopped at a Lowe's, grabbed coffee and a hot dog that tasted vaguely like plastic. I wasn't in a rush, but figured if I made decent time, I'd hit the Arkansas border before midnight. I was about an hour into Oklahoma, somewhere past Eric, when I first saw him. It was around 8:45 p.m. I remember glancing at the dash because the display was flickering, probably a loose wire, but I hadn't gotten around to fixing it. My headlight swept across the side of the road and there he was. Just standing there, aiming on the shoulder, facing forward like he'd been planted. Not trying to flag me down, not walking, just standing completely still. He wore a long brown coat. Heavy looking, like one of those old wool coats you see in detective movies. Thick collar, soaked at the hem. He didn't move. Didn't blink. And the weirdest thing, my lights didn't catch his face. Not like it was hidden, more like the shadows just clung to it. I slowed down a little. Not much, just a gut instinct telling me to keep an eye on him. Something about his posture made my skin crawl. I've passed plenty of hitchhikers and weirdos, but this guy, he didn't look like he wanted help. He looked like he was waiting. I radioed it in. Possible pedestrian near mile marker 197. No vehicle in sight. Routine stuff. The dispatcher said she'd notify state patrol. I kept driving, telling myself it was just some drifter. Maybe drunk, maybe lost. 10 minutes later, I saw him again. Same coat, same stance, but this time he was on the other side of the highway. Now, I know how tricks of light work. I know the road can mess with your head after hours behind the wheel. But that stretch it straight. No exits, no curves, no way to cross without me seeing. And even if he'd crossed the divider on foot, there's no way he could have gotten that far ahead. I turned the radio off. The static had started hissing between songs and it was getting on my nerves. Weirdly, the silence felt safer, like if I stayed quiet, maybe whatever was happening wouldn't notice me. About 40 minutes later, I pulled into a rest stop I'd used before. Nothing special, just 2 vending machines, a bathroom, and a sad little pay phone that never worked. There was one other truck in the lot, parked way in the back. No lights, no sound, no movement. Looked like the driver was already passed out and asleep. I parked under the lone flickering lamp and headed to the restroom. I wasn't tired, but I needed to reset, splash water on my face, shake the road off. As soon as I stepped inside, the lights buzzed and dimmed just enough to make me stop. I told myself it was nothing. Old wiring, I'd seen worse. I walked to the sink, leaned forward, and looked at myself in the mirror. I looked like hell. Skin pale, eyes shot with red veins. Not exhausted, drained, like I'd been running on empty all day without realizing it. I turned on the tap, cold water, let it run for a second, then leaned down and splashed my face. And that's when the lights went out completely. Not a flicker. Just black. I froze. Water dripping from my fingers. Couldn't see my reflection. Couldn't see anything. Then I heard it, footsteps. Heavy, slow, coming down the tile hallway behind me. My first thought was another driver. Maybe the guy from the other truck. I called out, occupied, man. No response. The steps kept coming. Steady. Deliberate. Not in a rush. Not hesitant. Just closing in. Then they stopped right outside the door. Didn't turn around. I don't know why. I just stood there frozen. My fingers started tingling. My ears were ringing from the silence. I stared at the spot where the mirror had been, barely breathing. The lights came back on a few seconds later. Same buzzing hum, like nothing had happened. The hallway was empty. I didn't wait around to question it. I walked out fast. Keys already in my hand. No vending machine stop. No bathroom check. I got to my cab, opened the door, and stopped cold. There was something on the passenger seat. A coat. Brown. Wool. Damp. I keep that seat empty always. It's a habit. Cleaner cab, less clutter, easier to sleep when everything's in its place. But now sitting there like it belonged was that same coat. I leaned closer. It smelled like mold and stale smoke. The kind of old, damp scent you get from a basement no one goes into anymore. And the seat was warm, like someone had just been sitting there. I shut the door hard enough to make the rig rock. Climbed in, started the engine, and didn't stop until I crossed into Arkansas. The moment I saw that Waffle House sign glowing by the interstate, I pulled off. I checked the seat again. Gone. No coat. No smell. The fabric was cold to the touch. I didn't go inside. Just parked under the lights, locked the doors, and kept the engine running. I sat there until the sky started to lighten. My eyes never left the mirrors. I didn't sleep. Didn't even close my eyes. That was the last time I took that route. When I got back, I told dispatch I wouldn't run through Oklahoma anymore. Didn't give a reason. Didn't need to. I think Nate had known something. He just didn't know how to say it. Since then, I've driven plenty of miles, seen my share of strange things. But that night still sits with me. Sometimes when I pull into a rest stop, I still think about those footsteps, the coat, the silence. And when I glance at the passenger seat, I still get goosebumps. I'm Darren, 37 now. I've been behind the wheel of a rig since I was 24. Long-haul trucking isn't the most glamorous life, but it paid the bills and kept me moving, literally and emotionally. I liked the road, the space to think, the rhythm of the engine. It kept me away from people, which I didn't mind. Usually, the silence was a comfort. But that one night, it changed all that. I remember it started with a job offer that seemed almost too good to be true. My dispatcher, Carl, called around 10 p.m. He said he had a last-minute run, one I could pick up that same night. A straight shot from just outside Regent, Wyoming, up to a drop just below the Montana line. No layovers, no touch freight, just pick up, drive, drop, and done. A refer load, he said. Pre-sealed. Pick up at 11:45 p.m. Do not open the trailer, he warned. Just get it to the destination. No questions. That last bit threw me. I thought, come on, Cowell. What am I hauling? Black market snowmen? He didn't laugh. Just said, don't open it. No stops unless it's for fuel. I dealt with high-security loads before, pharmaceuticals, electronics, stuff like that. But this had a different tone. I could hear it in his voice. Something cold. Final. Still, I said yes. Money was tight. I was behind on everything: rent, truck maintenance, credit cards. I didn't really have a choice. The pickup was just off a two-lane road on the outskirts. No warehouse, no office, just an empty lot and a lone refrigerated trailer hooked up and ready to go. The only light was from a flickering street lamp that looked like it couldn't decide whether to stay alive or not. I parked, stepped out, and gave the unit a once-over. The trailer was already running. The refrigeration was humming louder than usual. The lock on the back was strange, a big digital keypad, no logo, military style. No keyhole, no padlock, just a thick steel code panel. I did my pre-trip inspection like usual. Tires good. Hitch tight. No weird smells. Nothing leaking. But when I touched the side of the trailer, my hand jerked back. It was hot. Not warm. Hot. Like something had been running inside it for hours. That's not how reefer units work. They're cold outside too. Especially at full blast. Still, I climbed into the cab and told myself it was fine. I pulled onto the highway just after midnight. For the first hour or two, nothing happened. Radio playing low, wind humming past the windows. I drank coffee from a gas station thermos and watched the miles slide by under my tires. I even started relaxing a little. But then the temperature dropped. At first, I only noticed it slowly. My fingers started to feel stiff. My breath fogged up in front of me. I reached out to check the vents. The heater was on high, but it felt like the air had gone dead. Cold was seeping in from the floor, the doors, the windshield. I glanced at the dashboard. It read 15 degrees. That wasn't right. It had been in the 40s earlier. There was no way it could have dropped that fast. Then I heard it. Thump. Heavy. Sharp. Something was shifting in the trailer. I checked the side mirrors, but everything looked normal. Still, that noise didn't sit right with me. Reefer cargo is strapped down, packed to stay put. That kind of noise doesn't happen unless something's loose or alive. I turned off the radio and leaned forward. Thump, thump. Then a long scrape. I pulled into a turnout near an old way station. It looked like it had been abandoned for years. I killed the engine and slid out of the cab. The air outside hit me like a wall. It felt colder than anything I'd ever stood in. Not regular cold. This was wrong. The kind of cold that feels personal. That makes your bones ache like they're shrinking. I walked around the rig, flashlight in hand, breathing hard. That's when I heard it. Let me out. The voice was faint, muffled, but real. I froze in place. I pointed the flashlight at the trailer door. Nothing moved. No rattling, no banging. Just silence. Then dab, dab, dab right against the metal. I stumbled back a few feet. My chest was pounding. Hello, I called before I could stop myself. Silence again. Then the voice. The voice wasn't scared. It was tired, resigned, like whoever was in there already knew how this ended. I didn't even think. I ran back to the cab, slammed the door, locked it, and just sat there shaking. Then the knocks came again. This time right behind my head, 3 of them. I jammed the rig into drive and tore back onto the highway, pushing the speedway past what was safe for a loaded truck. I didn't care. I just wanted to be gone. But the cold came with me. Frost started forming inside the windshield. The steering wheel felt like stone under my fingers. The smell hit next like rotting meat and wet earth. It was thick, heavy, and wrong. I gagged and rolled down the window, but it didn't help. Then I looked in the mirror. The face pressed up against the side window of the trailer. White, empty, staring straight at me with eyes that didn't blink. I lost it. Swerved off the road, tires screaming, almost flipped the whole rig. Somehow I managed to keep it upright. When I looked again, the face was gone. I drove another hour until I reached a truck stop near a town called Colston. I pulled far from the lights. I got out and walked around the trailer again, hand on my phone, ready to call the cops. That's when I saw it. A slow, steady smear running down from the top seam of the trailer. Thick. Red. Real. I touched it without thinking. It was warm. I backed away and stumbled inside the diner, passing a few rough-looking guys at a corner booth. They didn't say a word. I just headed to the bathroom, locked the door, and scrubbed my hands until they went numb. When I came back out, the rig was gone. Not moved, not driven off. Gone. No sound. No tail lights. No skid marks. Just a dark, empty patch of concrete where it had been. I rushed to the counter and asked the cashier if she saw anything. She looked me over for a second, then asked, "You with hollow pines?" I nodded slowly. She shook her head. "They went under almost a decade ago," she said. "One of their trucks went missing in a snowstorm up near Glacier Pass. Never found the load." She pulled out an old, yellowed newspaper from under the counter. It showed a picture of a rig half buried in snow. My trailer. Same number. Same logo. Everything. That one was carrying unclaimed flood victims from Idaho. Meant for forensic analysis. Never arrived. Some say it still shows up when the temperature drops. I left my number with her. Spent 3 nights in the motel next door. Hoping to see the truck again. Hoping not to. It didn't come back, but that knocking did. First night, 3:12 a.m. Knock. Right behind my motel bed's headboard. I sat up. Held my breath. Then just barely. "Please, just let me out." Now, no matter where I go, it follows. Not every night, but enough. I'll wake up and the mirror will be fogged. Even if the room's warm. I'll smell something sour, sweet, dead. And sometimes just for a second. I see the face staring back in the reflection. I quit trucking after that. Sold my rig. Got a job at a warehouse across town. Stacking boxes. Scanning inventory. It's boring, but I'm done with it. I'm Mike. I'm 42 now and I've been a long-haul truck driver since I was 21. That's over 2 decades on the road. Just me, my rig, and a map that might as well be tattooed on the back of my hand by now. I don't have kids. Never got married. I used to date a woman named Carla in Idaho, but she didn't like the silence between calls. I guess I've always been better with distance than closeness. Trucking gave me freedom. No office politics, no alarm clocks, just the steady rhythm of tires on pavement, a thermos of gas station coffee, and the knowledge that no one was looking over my shoulder. For all the years I've spent hauling things across this country, I thought I'd seen the weirdest the roads could offer until that one job. That job still keeps me up some nights. It was a Tuesday when I got the call. I remember because I'd just finished unloading at a warehouse in Flagstaff and was looking forward to a slow dinner and early sleep. Ben, my dispatcher, rang me around 6 p.m. He said he had a late pickup from a private contractor, a sealed crate that needed to get to a drop point just outside Dallas. He didn't sound excited about it, which coming from Ben was rare. He usually pitched jobs like a car salesman who moonlights as a radio host. "This one's different," he said. "You don't have to take it, but they're paying triple cash. No questions." I asked what the cargo was. He hesitated. They wrote down experimental equipment. No company name, just coordinates. Like I said, your call now. A sealed load with vague paperwork usually sets off alarms in your gut. But triple pay? That was tempting. I'd been running low after a dry month. I figured if it was sketchy, it was the kind of sketchy the government didn't want to talk about. Military contracts, secret tech. I've hauled for them before. No problems. So I said yes. By 9 p.m. I was on site. The coordinates led me to a fenced compound about 40 miles east of Winslow. The place looked dead. Flat buildings, low roofs, surrounded by dry scrub. No company logo, no floodlights, nothing welcoming. Just a gate that rolled open as I approached. A guy was waiting outside. Tall, lanky, pale like a piece of paper. He wore a black uniform tied around the collar. No name, no patches, just black from neck to boots. He didn't say a word. Just handed me a clipboard and motioned toward the loading dock like I'd interrupted his day. I backed the trailer in. I didn't see what they loaded. Just heard one heavy thud followed by the trailer doors slamming shut. No forklifts, no beeping, no footsteps, just that thud. Like someone had dropped a coffin-sized secret inside my trailer. I signed the manifest. No delivery instructions, no contact info, just do not open during transit. Stamped 3 times across the page in red ink. The moment I pulled away, my GPS froze. Screen went gray, route wiped clean. I stopped and rebooted it. No luck. Luckily, I knew the route, Highway 40 to 287 South. Easy. I figured it was just a software glitch, but in the back of my head, a small, irritating knot started forming. The first couple of hours were smooth. Music playing low, window cracked, usual desert emptiness. But sometime past 2:30 a.m., things changed. I noticed it first when the silence kicked in. You get used to road noise, wind buffeting the cab, tires humming, a kind of ambient whoosh that becomes your background music. But suddenly, it all vanished. The kind of silence where your breathing sounds too loud. The kind that makes your ears strain like they're waiting for a sound that never comes. I turned off the radio and leaned forward. That's when I saw the shape. At first, I thought it was a person standing in the middle of the road. I flipped on the high beams. It didn't move. Low down, I hit the horn. It wasn't looking at me, but its head was tilted, almost like it was listening. The limbs didn't hang right. Too long. Arms too straight. Like someone had tried to build a person using the wrong blueprints. I was close enough now to see it wasn't standing naturally, more like suspended. The feet hovered an inch above the pavement, and then it was gone. Not walked away, not ran. Just blinked out of existence like a faulty projection. I slammed the brakes and sat there, breathing hard. Checked the mirrors, looked around. Road empty. I told myself I was tired. Overtired. Maybe it was a leftover image burned into my retinas. Then the CB kicked in. White noise, then breathing. Not normal breathing, heavy, slow, wheezy. Like someone was dying on the other end of the line. I grabbed the mic. Breaker 19, this is Midnight Runner. Do you copy? More breathing. No response. Then 3 loud bangs from the trailer. Flat buildings, low roofs, surrounded by dry scrub. No company logo, no floodlights, nothing welcoming. Just a gate that rolled open as I approached. A guy was waiting outside. Tall, lanky, pale like a piece of paper. He wore a black uniform tied around the collar. No name, no patches, just black from neck to boots. He didn't say a word. Just handed me a clipboard and motioned toward the loading dock like I'd interrupted his day. I backed the trailer in. I didn't see what they loaded. Just heard one heavy thud followed by the trailer doors slamming shut. No forklifts, no beeping, no footsteps, just that thud. Like someone had dropped a coffin-sized secret inside my trailer. I signed the manifest. No delivery instructions, no contact info, just do not open during transit. Stamped 3 times across the page in red ink. The moment I pulled away, my GPS froze. Screen went gray, route wiped clean. I stopped and rebooted it. No luck. Luckily, I knew the route, Highway 40 to 287 South. Easy. I figured it was just a software glitch, but in the back of my head, a small, irritating knot started forming. The first couple of hours were smooth. Music playing low, window cracked, usual desert emptiness. But sometime past 2:30 a.m., things changed. I noticed it first when the silence kicked in. You get used to road noise, wind buffeting the cab, tires humming, a kind of ambient whoosh that becomes your background music. But suddenly, it all vanished. The kind of silence where your breathing sounds too loud. The kind that makes your ears strain like they're waiting for a sound that never comes. I turned off the radio and leaned forward. That's when I saw the shape. At first, I thought it was a person standing in the middle of the road. I flipped on the high beams. It didn't move. Low down, I hit the horn. It wasn't looking at me, but its head was tilted almost like it was listening. The limbs didn't hang right. Too long. Arms too straight. Like someone had tried to build a person using the wrong blueprints. I was close enough now to see it wasn't standing naturally, more like suspended. The feet hovered an inch above the pavement. And then it was gone. Not walked away, not ran. Just blinked out of existence like a faulty projection. I slammed the brakes and sat there, breathing hard. Checked the mirrors, looked around. Road empty. I told myself I was tired. Overtired. Maybe it was a leftover image burned into my retinas. Then the CB kicked in. White noise, then breathing. Not normal breathing, heavy, slow, wheezy. Like someone was dying on the other end of the line. I grabbed the mic. Breaker 19, this is Midnight Runner. Do you copy? More breathing. No response. Then 3 loud bangs from the trailer. Flat buildings, low roofs, surrounded by dry scrub. No company logo, no floodlights, nothing welcoming. Just a gate that rolled open as I approached. A guy was waiting outside. Tall, lanky, pale like a piece of paper. He wore a black uniform tied around the collar. No name, no patches, just black from neck to boots. He didn't say a word. Just handed me a clipboard and motioned toward the loading dock like I'd interrupted his day. I backed the trailer in. I didn't see what they loaded. Just heard one heavy thud followed by the trailer doors slamming shut. No forklifts, no beeping, no footsteps, just that thud. Like someone had dropped a coffin-sized secret inside my trailer. I signed the manifest. No delivery instructions, no contact info, just do not open during transit. Stamped 3 times across the page in red ink. The moment I pulled away, my GPS froze. Screen went gray, route wiped clean. I stopped and rebooted it. No luck. Luckily, I knew the route, Highway 40 to 287 South. Easy. I figured it was just a software glitch, but in the back of my head, a small, irritating knot started forming. The first couple of hours were smooth. Music playing low, window cracked, usual desert emptiness. But sometime past 2:30 a.m., things changed. I noticed it first when the silence kicked in. You get used to road noise, wind buffeting the cab, tires humming, a kind of ambient whoosh that becomes your background music. But suddenly, it all vanished. The kind of silence where your breathing sounds too loud. The kind that makes your ears strain like they're waiting for a sound that never comes. I turned off the radio and leaned forward. That's when I saw the shape. At first, I thought it was a person standing in the middle of the road. I flipped on the high beams. It didn't move. Low down, I hit the horn. It wasn't looking at me, but its head was tilted, almost like it was listening. The limbs didn't hang right. Too long. Arms too straight. Like someone had tried to build a person using the wrong blueprints. I was close enough now to see it wasn't standing naturally. More like suspended. The feet hovered an inch above the pavement. And then it was gone. Not walked away, not ran. Just blinked out of existence like a faulty projection. I slammed the brakes and sat there, breathing hard. Checked the mirrors, looked around. Road empty. I told myself I was tired. Overtired. Maybe it was a leftover image burned into my retinas. Then the CB kicked in. White noise, then breathing. Not normal breathing, heavy, slow, wheezy. Like someone was dying on the other end of the line. I grabbed the mic. Breaker 19, this is Midnight Runner. Do you copy? More breathing. No response. Then 3 loud bangs from the trailer. Flat buildings, low roofs, surrounded by dry scrub. No company logo, no floodlights, nothing welcoming. Just a gate that rolled open as I approached. A guy was waiting outside. Tall, lanky, pale like a piece of paper. He wore a black uniform tied around the collar. No name, no patches, just black from neck to boots. He didn't say a word. Just handed me a clipboard and motioned toward the loading dock like I'd interrupted his day. I backed the trailer in. I didn't see what they loaded. Just heard one heavy thud followed by the trailer doors slamming shut. No forklifts, no beeping, no footsteps, just that thud. Like someone had dropped a coffin-sized secret inside my trailer. I signed the manifest. No delivery instructions, no contact info, just do not open during transit. Stamped 3 times across the page in red ink. The moment I pulled away, my GPS froze. Screen went gray, route wiped clean. I stopped and rebooted it. No luck. Luckily, I knew the route, Highway 40 to 287 South. Easy. I figured it was just a software glitch, but in the back of my head, a small, irritating knot started forming. The first couple of hours were smooth. Music playing low, window cracked, usual desert emptiness. But sometime past 2:30 a.m., things changed. I noticed it first when the silence kicked in. You get used to road noise, wind buffeting the cab, tires humming, a kind of ambient whoosh that becomes your background music. But suddenly, it all vanished. The kind of silence where your breathing sounds too loud. The kind that makes your ears strain like they're waiting for a sound that never comes. I turned off the radio and leaned forward. That's when I saw the shape. At first, I thought it was a person standing in the middle of the road. I flipped on the high beams. It didn't move. Low down, I hit the horn. It wasn't looking at me, but its head was tilted, almost like it was listening. The limbs didn't hang right. Too long. Arms too straight. Like someone had tried to build a person using the wrong blueprints. I was close enough now to see it wasn't standing naturally. More like suspended. The feet hovered an inch above the pavement. And then it was gone. Not walked away, not ran. Just blinked out of existence like a faulty projection. I slammed the brakes and sat there, breathing hard. Checked the mirrors, looked around. Road empty. I told myself I was tired. Overtired. Maybe it was a leftover image burned into my retinas. Then the CB kicked in. White noise, then breathing. Not normal breathing, heavy, slow, wheezy. Like someone was dying on the other end of the line. I grabbed the mic. Breaker 19, this is Midnight Runner. Do you copy? More breathing. No response. Then 3 loud bangs from the trailer. Flat buildings, low roofs, surrounded by dry scrub. No company logo, no floodlights, nothing welcoming. Just a gate that rolled open as I approached. A guy was waiting outside. Tall, lanky, pale like a piece of paper. He wore a black uniform tied around the collar. No name, no patches, just black from neck to boots. He didn't say a word. Just handed me a clipboard and motioned toward the loading dock like I'd interrupted his day. I backed the trailer in. I didn't see what they loaded. Just heard one heavy thud followed by the trailer doors slamming shut. No forklifts, no beeping, no footsteps, just that thud. Like someone had dropped a coffin-sized secret inside my trailer. I signed the manifest. No delivery instructions, no contact info, just do not open during transit. Stamped 3 times across the page in red ink. The moment I pulled away, my GPS froze. Screen went gray, route wiped clean. I stopped and rebooted it. No luck. Luckily, I knew the route, Highway 40 to 287 South. Easy. I figured it was just a software glitch, but in the back of my head, a small, irritating knot started forming. The first couple of hours were smooth. Music playing low, window cracked, usual desert emptiness. But sometime past 2:30 a.m., things changed. I noticed it first when the silence kicked in. You get used to road noise, wind buffeting the cab, tires humming, a kind of ambient whoosh that becomes your background music. But suddenly, it all vanished. The kind of silence where your breathing sounds too loud. The kind that makes your ears strain like they're waiting for a sound that never comes. I turned off the radio and leaned forward. That's when I saw the shape. At first, I thought it was a person standing in the middle of the road. I flipped on the high beams. It didn't move. Low down, I hit the horn. It wasn't looking at me, but its head was tilted, almost like it was listening. The limbs didn't hang right. Too long. Arms too straight. Like someone had tried to build a person using the wrong blueprints. I was close enough now to see it wasn't standing naturally. More like suspended. The feet hovered an inch above the pavement. And then it was gone. Not walked away, not ran. Just blinked out of existence like a faulty projection. I slammed the brakes and sat there, breathing hard. Checked the mirrors, looked around. Road empty. I told myself I was tired. Overtired. Maybe it was a leftover image burned into my retinas. Then the CB kicked in. White noise, then breathing. Not normal breathing, heavy, slow, wheezy. Like someone was dying on the other end of the line. I grabbed the mic. Breaker 19, this is Midnight Runner. Do you copy? More breathing. No response. Then 3 loud bangs from the trailer. Flat buildings, low roofs, surrounded by dry scrub. No company logo, no floodlights, nothing welcoming. Just a gate that rolled open as I approached. A guy was waiting outside. Tall, lanky, pale like a piece of paper. He wore a black uniform tied around the collar. No name, no patches, just black from neck to boots. He didn't say a word. Just handed me a clipboard and motioned toward the loading dock like I'd interrupted his day. I backed the trailer in. I didn't see what they loaded. Just heard one heavy thud followed by the trailer doors slamming shut. No forklifts, no beeping, no footsteps, just that thud. Like someone had dropped a coffin-sized secret inside my trailer. I signed the manifest. No delivery instructions, no contact info, just do not open during transit. Stamped 3 times across the page in red ink. The moment I pulled away, my GPS froze. Screen went gray, route wiped clean. I stopped and rebooted it. No luck. Luckily, I knew the route, Highway 40 to 287 South. Easy. I figured it was just a software glitch, but in the back of my head, a small, irritating knot started forming. The first couple of hours were smooth. Music playing low, window cracked, usual desert emptiness. But sometime past 2:30 a.m., things changed. I noticed it first when the silence kicked in. You get used to road noise, wind buffeting the cab, tires humming, a kind of ambient whoosh that becomes your background music. But suddenly, it all vanished. The kind of silence where your breathing sounds too loud. The kind that makes your ears strain like they're waiting for a sound that never comes. I turned off the radio and leaned forward. That's when I saw the shape. At first, I thought it was a person standing in the middle of the road. I flipped on the high beams. It didn't move. Low down, I hit the horn. It wasn't looking at me, but its head was tilted, almost like it was listening. The limbs didn't hang right. Too long. Arms too straight. like someone had tried to build a person using the wrong blueprints. I was close enough now to see it wasn't standing naturally, more like suspended. The feet hovered an inch above the pavement, and then it was gone. Not walked away, not ran. Just blinked out of existence like a faulty projection. I slammed the brakes and sat there, breathing hard. Checked the mirrors, looked around. Road empty. I told myself I was tired. Overtired. Maybe it was a leftover image burned into my retinas. Then the CB kicked in. White noise, then breathing. Not normal breathing, heavy, slow, wheezy. Like someone was dying on the other end of the line. I grabbed the mic. Breaker 19, this is Midnight Runner. Do you copy? More breathing. No response. Then 3 loud bangs from the trailer. Story number 8. I'm 45, been a truck driver since I was 23. Not much of a talker, but if you've got a few minutes, I'll tell you something that happened to me a few years ago, something I still don't fully understand. It was early spring. I remember that because the bugs hadn't started smearing up the windshield yet. I was on a solo run from Kansas City down to a small plant near Lafayette. Regular freight, steel coils, heavy stuff, but nothing out of the ordinary. I'd done the route before. Smooth haul, decent timing, no problems. It was late, probably close to midnight, when I started feeling that deep kind of tired, the kind that creeps in behind your eyes. I didn't want to push through it. You learn not to do that in this job. So I checked the GPS for a place to pull off and found an old way station a few miles ahead. It had been closed for years, but the lot was still there. Big open space, looked quiet. I pulled in and parked toward the back near the tree line. No other trucks, no lights except my own. I left the engine running for warmth and climbed into the sleeper to get a little shut-eye. Must have been no more than 10 minutes in when I felt it. A bump. It wasn't the kind of jolt you get from the trailer settling or a gust of wind. This was different. More like someone had shoved the back end of the trailer with their shoulder. Soft but clear, just enough to wake me without scaring the hell out of me right away. I sat up, held my breath, waited. Then I heard it. A slow dragging sound. Metal on metal. The kind of sound that makes your stomach twist because it's not supposed to be there. It was moving along the passenger side of the trailer, long and deliberate, like someone was running a crowbar along it. I got out of the bunk and grabbed my flashlight from the dash. Cracked the door open and looked around. Couldn't see much. Just the lot, the outline of the trees, the usual night shapes. I stepped out, boots hitting gravel, and walked around to the other side. The trailer was fine. No dents, no scratches. But I saw footprints. Bare, huge, way too big to be normal. I wear a size 11, and these things made mine look like kids' shoes. They were deep too, like whoever made them had some serious weight behind them. The prints started from the tree line, came right up to the trailer, then veered back toward the woods. No tire tracks, no sign of another person. Just those massive prints in the gravel. I thought about following them a few steps, shining the flashlight between the trees. Part of me thought it might be some messed up prank. Maybe some backwoods guy screwing around trying to scare off truckers. But what I saw didn't look like a prank. About 20 yards in, near the edge of my flashlight beam, was a figure. Tall. Standing still. Completely still. No shirt. Just a pair of shredded jeans soaked from the knees down. Could have been mud or something else on his jeans. I didn't care to check. His skin looked off pale, kind of grayish, like he hadn't been out in the sun for years. And the way he stood there, head tilted to the side, eyes wide, locked onto me like he already knew what I'd do next. Then he smiled. No, not a smile, a grin. Way too wide, like his face was stretched the wrong way. No teeth showing, just lips. And silence. That's what hit me the hardest, how quiet it still was. No bugs, no wind, nothing. Just this guy, or whatever it was, staring at me from between the trees. I didn't yell. Didn't threaten him. I just turned around and walked fast but steady back to the cab. Got in, locked the doors, started the engine, and I drove. I didn't even check the side mirrors. Just kept my eyes on the road and got back on the highway like my life depended on it. Because honestly, it felt like it did. I made it maybe 10 miles down the road before I glanced up at the rear view. That's when I saw it. Footprints. Same kind. Only now they were on top of the trailer. I slammed the brakes hard. Almost jackknifed the whole rig. Pulled off into a rest area with a working streetlight. One of those orange glow ones with the buzzing sound that always makes everything look worse. I climbed out. Flashlight in one hand, tire thumper in the other. My hands were shaking. Not badly, but enough that I had to slow down climbing the ladder to the roof of the trailer. There was nobody up there. Just dust and a cold breeze. But right near the edge, written into the dust, was one word. Remember. The letters weren't scrawled. They were clean, careful, like someone had taken their time. I got down, didn't even look back, got in the cab and drove straight through to Lafayette. No more stops, no breaks, no back roads. For the drop, I took some time off. 2 weeks. Told dispatch I had the flu. Couldn't sleep for more than a couple hours at a time during that stretch. And when I did, I'd wake up convinced something was outside the window. Never was. But I stopped parking in isolated spots after that. Always picked truck stops with lights and people. Even if it meant paying. I never saw the thing again. But once in a while, when I'm parked overnight and everything goes still, I'll feel it again. That soft bump. The one that wakes you up just enough to wonder if it was real. Story number 9. I've been driving long-haul trucks most of my adult life. It's not glamorous, but it's steady, and I like the solitude. There's something comforting about the rhythm of it. Just me, my rig, and the open road. Most of the time, it's predictable: drive, rest, deliver, repeat. But every now and then, something slips through the cracks of normal. This story, this thing that happened to me, doesn't fit into any category I know. It was 3 winters ago in the middle of a cross-country haul. I was hauling refrigerated goods, frozen poultry, I think somewhere out west past Nebraska. I'd been through that stretch of I-80 more times than I could count. Honestly, it's not one of the more exciting routes. Mostly flat land, small towns, long stretches of empty road. You'd think I'd have it memorized by now. That night, I was running behind. Got delayed in Ohio by some warehouse issues, so I was pushing later than I normally would. I passed through a town called Bellwood around 11:15, planning to go maybe another hour before pulling over. I don't mess around with drowsy driving, but I figured I had a little left in me. Then the tiredness hit hard. Not just the usual road fatigue. This was heavy, like something hit a switch in my body. My eyelids felt like bricks. My arms were lead and I was having trouble keeping the truck centered in the lane. Then, like it was waiting for me, this sign popped up. Rest area, 2 miles. A plain blue highway sign. No frills. Just the words. I didn't think twice about it. I needed sleep and it was right there. I put on my turn signal, took the exit, and pulled into the lot. The first thing I noticed was how dead the place looked. No semis, no cars. Just me. The lot had cracks like it hadn't been maintained in a long time. The streetlight flickered in and out, casting long, jumpy shadows. The building at the center looked like a bunker. Gray concrete walls, boarded-up windows, and a couple of busted vending machines visible through a dirty glass panel near the entrance. I remember thinking it looked abandoned. Not just empty, abandoned. But again, I was exhausted. At that point, I would have slept on a pile of gravel. I pulled into a space near the back, turned off the engine, climbed into the sleeper, and stretched out. I expected to wake up in maybe 20 or 30 minutes. Instead, I woke up in the kind of cold that shouldn't have been possible. The kind that creeps into your bones and sits there. The kind that doesn't match the time that passed. It was so cold I could see my breath. I sat up fast, confused. It takes hours for the sleeper cab to lose heat like that, even with the engine off. I reached for my phone. Dead. I swore I'd left it charging. Then I pulled the curtain back to look out the windshield. There were people standing in front of the truck. Dozens of them just standing there facing the cab. No movement. No sounds. Men, women, a couple of kids at least, that's what their shapes looked like. Their faces were hidden in shadow. Or maybe I just couldn't focus on them. No lights, no phones. Just dark outlines. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. At first, I thought it had to be a dream, a leftover image from something I'd seen before falling asleep. But then one of them stepped forward. A tall man, maybe wearing something long like a coat or cloak. He walked slowly toward my door. Unhurried. Almost casual. Like this was just a thing he did every night. That's when panic kicked in. I lunged forward, locked the doors, and climbed into the driver's seat. I flipped on the headlights, and they were gone. Not walking away. Not running. Just gone. No trace. Empty lot. I sat there in silence, gripping the steering wheel, heart pounding so hard I thought it might break something inside me. I didn't try to rationalize it. I didn't ask questions. I just tried to start the engine so I could get the hell out of there. The rig wouldn't turn over. Battery was dead. Completely drained. It had been perfectly fine before I parked. I was stuck alone with no phone, no engine, no heat. I threw on my coat, grabbed my flashlight, and stepped outside. The second I hit the ground, the cold slammed into me like a wall. I went around to check under the hood, more out of habit than hope. And that's when I saw the footprints. They were everywhere. All around the truck, circling it. Deep prints in the frozen slush. No tire tracks from any other vehicle. No footprints leading in or out of the lot. Just these prints, like people had emerged from the pavement and stood there waiting. I backed away slowly, got back in the cab, locked up again, and stayed there. I didn't sleep. I didn't blink. I kept the flashlight on, pointed at the windshield, watching, waiting. Hours must have passed, but the sky never lightened. The lot stayed dark. No sun, no help. Just me in that frozen rig. I must have blacked out again. There's no other way to explain it because when I opened my eyes, everything was different. The cab was warm. The engine was running. My phone was back to life and charging like nothing had happened. I checked the time. It was almost 7 a.m. I looked outside. No footprints. No damage. The snow around the truck was fresh and untouched. I got out and walked the perimeter. Nothing. Not a sign that anyone had ever been there. Even the building looked different now. Cleaner. Brighter. But when I stepped toward it, something in me said no. I got back in the truck and drove away. Later, I checked everything. My GPS log didn't record any stop at a rest area in that location. I called a friend who used to run dispatch in that region and asked about the exit. He told me it was shut down years ago, torn out completely after some infrastructure upgrade. There shouldn't have been a rest stop there. I checked satellite maps. Nothing. Just trees and shoulder. No road. No sign. No lot. It didn't exist. And when I pulled the dash cam footage from that night, the segment covering the time I stopped was just static. A 4-hour stretch of total visual noise. I've been through that stretch of I-80 a dozen times since, day and night. Never seen that sign again. Never found the exit. It's like it was there just that one time, waiting for me to be tired enough to see it. I don't stop between mile markers 238 and 240 anymore. Doesn't matter how tired I am. Doesn't matter how long I've been driving. I'll keep going until I pass it.